In the small and tranquil village of Bethany, nestled in the arid hills near Jerusalem, lived two sisters named Martha and Mary, along with their brother Lazarus. Bethany was a simple place where stone houses with clay roofs lined narrow, winding streets. Olive trees swayed gently in the wind, and the aroma of fresh bread often filled the air, creating a welcoming environment for all who lived there. Martha, the older sister, was a woman of vibrant spirit and always busy hands. From the break of dawn, she rose to prepare the bread, sweep the yard, and ensure that the house was immaculate. Her laughter was contagious, and her presence brought energy to everyone around her. Martha believed that service was a form of love, and nothing made her happier than seeing her guests satisfied and comfortable. Mary, on the other hand, had a serene and contemplative spirit. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity and wisdom, and she cherished moments of silence under the shade of trees, where she could meditate and reflect on the scriptures. Mary loved to learn and was always seeking spiritual knowledge. Often, she could be found sitting near the window, watching the sky and pondering the wonders of creation. The sisters' house was known throughout Bethany for its unparalleled hospitality. It was not just a home but a refuge for travelers, neighbors, and friends. The doors were always open, and the scent of spices and aromatic herbs invited everyone to enter. Laughter echoed through the walls, and conversations extended into the starry nights. A special visitor who frequently honored Martha and Mary's house with his presence was Jesus of Nazareth. Whenever he and his disciples passed through Bethany, they knew they would find rest and welcome there. Martha diligently prepared the best meals, selecting the freshest ingredients and attending to every detail. She wanted Jesus to feel valued and cared for. Meanwhile, Mary took every opportunity to sit at Jesus' feet, absorbing every word he spoke. She asked profound questions, seeking to understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God. Her interactions with Jesus were filled with respect and admiration, and she cherished these moments as invaluable treasures. Despite their differences, the sisters shared a deep and unbreakable bond. Martha admired Mary's spiritual devotion, though sometimes wished she would help more with the household chores. Mary, in turn, appreciated Martha's zeal in serving and understood that each expressed love in different ways. The daily routine in their house was a harmonious balance of work and contemplation. In the morning, Martha led the household activities, while Mary tended the garden, where she cultivated flowers and medicinal herbs. Afternoons were reserved for gatherings with friends and family, and at night, the family gathered to share stories and prayers. The inhabitants of Bethany held great respect for the sisters and Lazarus. They were known not only for their hospitality but also for their generosity and compassion. When someone in the community was in need, Martha and Mary were among the first to offer help, whether through a warm meal, a place to rest, or words of comfort. One day, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of pink and orange, Martha felt a stir in the air. She looked out the window and saw the figure of Jesus in the distance, walking toward the village. Her heart filled with joy, and she quickly began preparing the house to receive him. She lit oil lamps, arranged cushions, and placed fresh water so he could wash his feet after the long journey. Mary, upon learning of Jesus' arrival, felt a serene joy. She prepared a special place where she could sit and listen to his teachings. There were so many things she wanted to ask, so many truths she longed to understand. As night fell, Martha and Mary's house filled with life. Jesus' disciples also arrived, tired but grateful for the warmth of that home. Martha, with her inexhaustible energy, served everyone with a smile, ensuring nothing was missing. Mary, sitting close to Jesus, listened attentively to every word, her heart beating with reverence and love. That night would be remembered by all as a moment of deep connection and learning. The sisters' house became a sanctuary of peace and inspiration, where actions and contemplation met in perfect harmony. And although Martha and Mary expressed their love in different ways, both were united by the same purpose: to honor and serve the one who brought light and hope into their lives. In that simple village of Bethany, through the daily lives of two dedicated sisters, a powerful lesson was being taught about the importance of balancing active service with spiritual seeking. And thus, Martha and Mary's story would continue to inspire generations, showing that there is a place for both active and contemplative hearts on the path of faith. If you feel motivated and inspired by this content, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss more videos like this. We will bring a series of content with biblical teachings and inspiring stories that motivate us to continue and not give up. Let's proceed with the story. At Martha and Mary's house, the anticipation was palpable. The sisters were prepared to receive a special visitor who, in recent times, had become a constant and inspiring presence in their lives. Jesus of Nazareth. Martha, always diligent, had risen early to ensure everything was perfect. The pots were clean, the tables were well set, and the bathrooms exuded the comforting aroma of fresh herbs. Every detail was carefully considered to provide a welcoming and comfortable environment for Jesus and his disciples. While Martha ran from one side to the other, ensuring all preparations were in order, Mary dedicated herself to a quieter but equally important task. She arranged the seating on the floor, spreading soft blankets and adjusting the cushions so everyone could sit comfortably. Her gaze was fixed on Jesus, who walked toward the house with his disciples, his simple garments swaying gently with each step. As Jesus approached, the energy in the sisters' house began to change. It was as if his mere presence brought a special light, transforming the environment into something even more welcoming and serene. The sound of his voice, gentle and authoritative, seemed to fill every corner, bringing a sense of peace and hope. When Jesus finally arrived, he was greeted with warm smiles and sincere embraces. Martha, always attentive to details, offered Jesus a bowl of fresh water so he could wash his feet, following the example of humility he taught. Meanwhile, Mary, with her open heart and curious mind, found the perfect spot at Jesus' feet, ready to absorb every word he shared. The table was laden with delicious dishes, freshly baked bread, juicy fruits, aromatic cheeses, and red wines that glowed in the candlelight. The table was not just a place for meals, but a symbol of communion and friendship. The disciples settled in, and the conversation began to flow, full of laughter, stories, and profound teachings. Martha, with her servile nature, moved gracefully and efficiently, ensuring everyone was satisfied and comfortable. Her heart was filled with joy seeing Jesus so well received, and every gesture reflected the love and dedication she had for him. She knew that each meal was an opportunity to show gratitude and support to the Master who had changed so many lives. Meanwhile, Mary remained attentively by Jesus' side, her eyes shining with admiration and her spirit eager for knowledge. Jesus' words seemed to penetrate deeply into her heart, bringing clarity and inspiration. She asked thoughtful questions, seeking to better understand the mysteries of the kingdom of God and how to apply his teachings in her own life. As the afternoon progressed, Martha and Mary's house filled with life. The laughter of children playing nearby, the sound of lively conversations, and Jesus' comforting presence created a harmonious symphony of communion and learning. The atmosphere was charged with positive energy, where everyone felt valued and loved. In a moment of tranquility, Jesus stood to teach, and everyone's attention turned to him. Martha, watching her sister Mary, felt a mix of pride and admiration. She knew that, although their ways of expressing love were different, both were contributing uniquely to the mission they shared. Martha with her dedication to service and Mary with her relentless pursuit of spiritual wisdom. Jesus' arrival at Martha and Mary's house was not just a regular visit. It was a transformative meeting that strengthened the bonds of friendship and faith among all present. Every detail of that afternoon reflected the perfect harmony between action and contemplation, service and devotion, creating a setting where the true essence of Christian faith manifested brilliantly and inspiringly. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows over Bethany, the sisters' house continued to vibrate with Jesus' presence and his teachings. It was an afternoon that left an indelible mark on the hearts of Martha, Mary, and all who had the privilege to be present, reminding them of the importance of balancing active service with spiritual seeking, following the example of love and wisdom that Jesus exemplified so perfectly. Do you feel any similarity between the moment you're living and the story told? Do you feel you're experiencing something similar? Tell us how you feel. If you need a prayer or help, share a story of overcoming to inspire us and give us strength not to give up. Comment if you want to help someone or need help. In the tranquil village of Bethany, situated in the hills near Jerusalem, lived Martha, a woman whose reputation for hospitality spread throughout the region. She lived with her siblings, Mary and Lazarus, in a simple yet welcoming house, where the aroma of fresh bread and aromatic herbs always filled the air. Their home was a meeting point for travelers and neighbors, a place where everyone felt welcome. Martha was a person of inexhaustible energy. From sunrise, she was up, planning meals, cleaning the house, and tending the garden. Her hands were skillful, and she knew exactly how to turn simple ingredients into delicious dishes. Every detail was important to her: the well-set table, the shining glasses, the clean towels. Nothing escaped her attentive eye. She believed that hospitality was a way to demonstrate love and respect. For Martha, receiving someone in her home was not just about offering food and shelter, but also sharing a piece of herself. Her generous heart was reflected in every gesture, whether filling a guest's glass again or offering a word of comfort to someone in need. One day, she learned that Jesus would be passing through Bethany. Without hesitation, Martha decided to invite him to stay in her home. She knew Jesus was a great teacher and that many followed him to hear his teachings. She felt honored by the opportunity to serve him and wished to prepare everything in the best possible way. As soon as she received confirmation that Jesus would accept her invitation, Martha plunged into preparations. She went to the market to choose the freshest ingredients: grains, fruits, vegetables, and spices. She asked the bakers for the best bread and selected quality wines for the meal. Back in her kitchen, she began working diligently, mixing, cooking, and baking, while the aroma of the dishes spread throughout the house. Meanwhile, her sister Mary eagerly awaited Jesus' arrival. Unlike Martha, Mary was more contemplative. She valued moments of reflection and was excited to hear the Master's words. When Jesus finally arrived, accompanied by his disciples, he was joyfully greeted by the sisters. Martha, still busy with preparations, made sure everyone was comfortable. She offered water to wash Jesus' feet, following the customs of the time, and pointed out places where they could rest. Her face shone with satisfaction seeing the house full of life and lively conversations. While Martha continued to handle the meal details, Mary sat at Jesus' feet, absorbing every teaching. She was fascinated by the stories and lessons of love, compassion, and forgiveness he shared. For Mary, those moments were precious and enriching. Noticing that her sister was not helping, Martha felt a bit overwhelmed. There was so much to do, and she wanted everything to be perfect for her guests. At one point, she approached Jesus and with some concern said, "Lord, do you mind if my sister leaves me alone with all the work? Tell her to help me." Jesus looked at Martha with kindness and replied, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her." These words made Martha reflect. She understood that, although her desire to serve was valuable, it was also important to take time to listen and learn. She realized that balancing action and contemplation was essential for a full life. Still, Jesus deeply appreciated Martha's generous heart. Her dedication to serving others was an expression of genuine love. She represented the value of action, of work done with devotion and care. Her hospitality was not just about offering food or shelter, but about creating an environment where people felt loved and welcomed. After this understanding, Martha continued to serve, but with a calmer heart. She learned to also value moments of quietness and learning. Her home remained a meeting place where action and contemplation coexisted harmoniously. Martha's story teaches us about the importance of dedicated service and a generous heart. Her work ethic is an example of how we can put our faith into practice through concrete actions. At the same time, it reminds us that we must also set aside time to nurture our spirit and strengthen our connection with the divine. Martha, the dedicated hostess, shows us that serving others is a powerful way to express love and faith. Her life is a testament to how small actions can have a big impact, inspiring those around us to act with kindness and dedication. While Martha fervently dedicated herself to the household tasks, ensuring every detail was perfectly in order to receive Jesus, her sister Mary took a different path. The house in Bethany was filled with movement, the clattering of pots on the fire, the aroma of spices filling the air, and the murmur of conversations from the disciples accompanying the Master. Amidst this bustling scene, Mary felt a call in her heart. She spotted Jesus sitting in a quiet corner of the room, his presence emanating a peace that contrasted with the surrounding hustle. Without hesitation, Mary approached and sat at his feet, a gesture of deep humility and respect in her culture. There she found refuge, a sacred space where Jesus' words could reach her heart without distractions. Mary's eyes were fixed on Jesus, shining with admiration and a thirst for knowledge. Every teaching he shared was like water for her thirsty soul. Jesus spoke about love, compassion, forgiveness, and the kingdom of God, topics that resonated deeply within her. Mary did not want to miss any detail. Every word was a treasure she would keep in her heart. Meanwhile, Martha, busy with preparations, watched her sister with a mix of surprise and frustration. There was so much to do. The table needed to be set, the food prepared, and the guests served. Martha felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders and did not understand how Mary could simply sit while there was work to be done. In a moment of exasperation, Martha approached Jesus and said, "Lord, do you mind if my sister leaves me alone with all the service? Tell her to help me." Jesus, with an understanding look and a gentle voice, replied, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her." Jesus' words were not a rebuke, but an invitation to reflection. He acknowledged Martha's effort but wanted her to understand that sometimes it is necessary to stop and nurture the Spirit. Mary had chosen to dedicate that moment to deeply connect with the divine teachings, and that was something of invaluable worth. Upon hearing Jesus' words, Mary felt her heart warm. She understood that her quest for spiritual understanding not only enriched her own inner life, but also prepared her to better serve others. Her devotion was not an escape from responsibilities, but an alignment with what she considered essential. Sitting there at Jesus' feet, Mary felt as if time had stopped. Worldly worries faded away, replaced by a sense of fulfillment and purpose. She realized that Jesus' words were not just teachings but a call to live a life guided by divine love and wisdom. Mary's attitude teaches us about the importance of finding balance in our lives. In a world full of obligations and distractions, setting aside time for contemplation and feeding the Spirit is fundamental. Mary demonstrates that devotion and deep love for Christ not only enrich a person's inner life, but also have the power to transform their way of being in the world. After that day, Mary continued to cultivate this balance. She participated in daily tasks, but always reserved moments for reflection and prayer. Her faith became a source of strength and inspiration, positively influencing everyone around her. Even Martha, over time, began to understand the value of this spiritual seeking and found ways to integrate contemplation into her own life. Mary's story, the devoted contemplative, is a powerful reminder that amid life's demands, it is essential to nurture our spirit. By seeking understanding and connection with the divine, we find guidance and strength to face challenges and serve others with a heart full of love. Mary invites us to sit, even if just for a moment, at Jesus' feet, to seek wisdom, listen attentively, and allow these truths to transform our inner selves. Her story continues to inspire many to value contemplation as a path to a richer and more meaningful life. Like if you're enjoying this, so YouTube can continue to recommend videos like this and help us stay motivated to continue. We appreciate every second, and may God bless you. During Jesus' visit to Martha and Mary's house in Bethany, the small village was filled with anticipation. The narrow stone streets were bustling, and the afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the surrounding hills. The sisters' house was a welcoming refuge, known for its warm hospitality and serene atmosphere. Martha, always attentive to details, was in full swing. In the kitchen, the aroma of fresh herbs and baked bread filled the air. She moved swiftly, setting the table with the best dishes, arranging cushions, and ensuring every corner of the house was spotless. Her heart was full of joy and determination to serve the Master and his disciples in the best possible way. Meanwhile, Mary felt drawn to Jesus' presence, who was already comfortably seated in the main room. His voice had a soft yet authoritative tone, and every word seemed to carry profound meaning. Without hesitation, Mary approached and sat at his feet, a gesture of humility and devotion. There she immersed herself in his teachings, letting each lesson touch her heart and nourish her soul. As Martha walked through the room carrying a tray of fresh fruits, she noticed her sister sitting, completely absorbed in Jesus' words. A pang of frustration surged within her. There was so much to be done, and Mary didn't seem concerned about helping with the household chores. The pots needed stirring, the bread checked, and water served to the guests. As time passed, Martha's restlessness grew. She began to beat the utensils a little harder, hoping the noise would catch Mary's attention. But her sister remained engrossed in the conversation with Jesus, oblivious to the hints. Finally, Martha could no longer contain her feelings. Wiping her hands on her apron, she addressed Jesus directly. "Lord," Martha began, trying to keep her voice calm, "do you mind if my sister leaves me alone with all the work? Tell her to help me." The room fell silent for a moment. All eyes turned to Jesus, who looked at Martha with deep understanding and compassion. In a gentle voice, he replied, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things. However, only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken away from her." Jesus' words touched Martha's heart. In an instant, she realized that in her dedication to service, she had lost the opportunity to also nurture her spirit. Her effort in handling the preparations was valuable, but she was letting worry and anxiety prevent her from enjoying the Master's presence. Martha felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, she understood the importance of her tasks, but on the other, she recognized the wisdom in Jesus' words. She took a deep breath and let the tension dissipate. She realized that she could find a balance between her responsibilities and the need to nourish her soul. With a gentle smile, Martha returned to the kitchen, but this time with a new perspective. She decided to simplify the preparations, opting to serve a simpler meal that didn't require as much attention. This way, she could also sit with Jesus and the others, participate in the teachings, and enjoy everyone's company. Mary, noticing the change in her sister, welcomed her with a loving look as she joined the group. The two sisters understood that, despite expressing their love and devotion in different ways, both were valuable and necessary. Martha represented active service, caring for others through concrete actions. Mary symbolized contemplation, the quest for spiritual understanding, and a deep connection with God. That moment in Bethany's house became a powerful lesson on the importance of balancing action and contemplation. Jesus did not devalue Martha's service but invited her not to be consumed by worries, reminding her that it was also essential to care for her spirit. The conversation continued into the night, with laughter, stories, and deep reflections. Martha, now more relaxed, participated actively, asking questions and sharing her own experiences. She felt a renewed joy in realizing that she could serve while also enriching herself spiritually. At the end of the visit, Jesus bid farewell to the sisters warmly, thanking them for their hospitality and the shared time. Martha and Mary stood at the door, watching him depart with the disciples as the sky filled with stars. They knew that day would be etched in their memories forever. From then on, Martha endeavored to maintain this balance in her daily life. She continued to serve with dedication, but also set aside moments for reflection and learning. Mary, in turn, began to help more with the tasks, understanding that service was also a form of expressing love. The story of this encounter in Bethany teaches us not to get lost in excessive worries or endless activities, forgetting to nurture our inner selves. Balancing service and contemplation allows us to grow harmoniously, benefiting not only ourselves but also those around us. Thus, Martha and Mary's lesson remains relevant, inspiring us to harmonize active service with personal spiritual growth. By finding this balance, we can live more fully and meaningfully, following the footsteps of love and wisdom taught by Jesus. In Bethany, the small village that housed the family of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus, days were filled with a peaceful routine and the constant presence of friends and neighbors. The surrounding hills were covered with olive trees, and the dirt paths witnessed the comings and goings of residents in their daily activities. The sisters' house was a meeting point where stories were shared and bonds were strengthened. One day, a shadow of worry hung over the house. Lazarus, the beloved brother of Martha and Mary, began to feel ill. At first, it was just a slight malaise, something everyone thought would pass quickly. However, as days went by, his condition worsened. The high fever weakened him, and the vitality that once lit up his face gave way to deep fatigue. Martha, with her practical nature, did everything in her power. She prepared medicinal herbs, consulted local healers, and stayed by Lazarus' side day and night. Mary, in turn, remained by her brother's side, offering words of comfort and silent prayers. The sisters' worry was evident, and the atmosphere in the house became heavy, marked by anxiety and fear of the unknown. Knowing the deep friendship they had with Jesus, the sisters decided to send him a message. A messenger was quickly dispatched, carrying a simple but urgent note. "Lord, the one you love is sick." They believed that upon receiving the news, Jesus would come immediately to help. They knew of his healing power and had faith that his presence could make a difference in Lazarus' recovery. While they awaited Jesus' arrival, the days seemed to drag on. Martha kept herself busy, managing household chores and attending to her brother's needs, trying to keep hope alive. Mary spent long hours by Lazarus' side, holding his hand and singing childhood songs to calm him. However, despite their efforts and fervent prayers, Lazarus' health continued to decline. The absence of Jesus began to weigh heavily on the sisters' hearts. Questions arose. Why hadn't he arrived yet? Perhaps the message hadn't been delivered? Or maybe Jesus was prevented from coming. In the midst of anguish, Lazarus closed his eyes for the last time. His passing plunged Martha and Mary into deep sorrow. Tears flowed freely, and the house that was once full of laughter now echoed with the silent sounds of mourning. Friends and neighbors came to offer their condolences, trying to provide some comfort in such a painful moment. Martha, though devastated, tried to stay strong. She took care of the burial preparations, following her people's traditions. Mary, consumed by grief, withdrew in silence, finding refuge in her memories and the hope that somehow, all this had a greater purpose. 4 days passed since Lazarus' death. It was then that someone announced Jesus' arrival. Upon hearing the news, Martha immediately rose and went out to meet him. Her steps were hurried, driven by a mix of sadness and expectation. When she finally saw him, her emotions overflowed. "Lord," Martha said, her voice choking, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that now, even now, God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus looked deeply into Martha's eyes and responded tenderly, "Your brother will rise again." Martha, still not fully understanding what he meant, replied, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection, on the last day." Then Jesus declared, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die, will live." Do you believe this? Martha, feeling the depth of Jesus' words, answered, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God who was to come into the world." Then Martha called Mary, whispering that Jesus had arrived. Mary quickly rose and ran to meet him. Upon seeing him, she fell at his feet, weeping and repeating her sister's words. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus, deeply moved by the sister's suffering and the sorrow he saw around him, was also emotionally stirred. He asked where they had placed Lazarus, and they led him to the tomb, a cave with a large stone covering the entrance. Before the tomb, Jesus commanded, "Remove the stone." Martha, concerned, warned, "Lord, it already smells bad, for it has been 4 days." Jesus looked at Martha and said, "Didn't I tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" With the stone removed, Jesus looked up to the sky and prayed, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I say this for the sake of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." Then, with a strong and authoritative voice, he called out, "Lazarus, come out." To everyone's astonishment, something incredible happened. Lazarus emerged from the tomb, still wrapped in his burial cloths. His eyes blinked in the daylight, and his expression was one of confusion mixed with serenity. Jesus then said, "Unbind him and let him go." The scene was indescribable. Martha and Mary ran to embrace their brother, tears of joy streaming down their faces. Those present were amazed, some falling to their knees, others raising their hands to the heavens in gratitude. The news of the miracle quickly spread throughout Bethany and beyond, touching many hearts. This moment was not just a demonstration of Jesus' divine power, but also a profound lesson on faith and hope. Martha and Mary had endured a painful waiting period, where their faith was tested to the utmost. Jesus' delay was not due to neglect but part of a greater plan that culminated in a powerful revelation of God's glory. Lazarus' resurrection became a symbol that even in the darkest moments, hope should not be lost. It taught that faith, even when shaken, can be restored and strengthened. Martha and Mary learned that God's ways are not always understandable, but they always have a purpose. From that day forward, life in Bethany was never the same. The sisters' house was once again filled with laughter and joy, now with a deeper understanding of faith and divine love. Lazarus became a living testimony of Jesus' power, and many began to believe because of him. This chapter in the lives of Martha, Mary, and Lazarus invites us to reflect on our own faith in times of difficulty. It reminds us that even when hope seems lost, we can trust that a greater purpose is at work, and that, in due time, the answer will come, bringing renewal and life. When Jesus finally arrived in Bethany, the small village was enveloped in heavy silence. News of Lazarus' death had spread, and the atmosphere was one of deep sorrow. The trees swayed gently in the wind, and the sun, which normally brought warmth and joy, seemed overshadowed by the gray clouds covering the sky. Lazarus, Martha and Mary's brother, had been buried 4 days ago. According to the customs of the time, his body had been wrapped in linen sheets and placed in a cave, sealed with a large stone. The pain of loss was immense for the sisters, but even in mourning, they kept hope in their hearts. They believed that somehow, Jesus could bring comfort or even a miracle. Upon learning of Jesus' arrival, Martha, always proactive, went out immediately to meet him. Her steps were swift, driven by a mix of sadness and hope. When she saw him in the distance, her heart raced. Approaching him, Martha said with a choking voice, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that now, even now, God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus looked into Martha's eyes, seeing the pain and faith residing there. Calmly, he replied, "Your brother will rise again." Martha, still not fully understanding what he meant, affirmed, "I know he will rise again in the resurrection, on the last day." Then Jesus declared with authority, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" Martha, feeling the depth of Jesus' words, responded, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God who was to come into the world." Next, Martha went to call her sister Mary. She found her at home, surrounded by friends trying to console her. Whispering, she said, "The Master is here and calls you." Mary quickly rose and ran to meet Jesus. Upon seeing him, she fell at his feet, crying, and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Seeing Mary weeping, and the Jews accompanying her also in tears, Jesus felt a deep emotion. His spirit was agitated, and he asked, "Where have you put him?" They replied, "Lord, come and see." Jesus walked to the burial site. Upon reaching the tomb, a cave sealed with a large stone, Jesus could not hold back his tears. Emotion overwhelmed him, and those around him remarked, "Look how much he loved him." However, some questioned, "He, who opened the eyes of the blind, could not have prevented Lazarus from dying?" Jesus, still deeply moved, approached the tomb and commanded, "Remove the stone." Martha, concerned, warned, "Lord, it already smells bad, for it has been 4 days." Jesus looked at Martha with tenderness and said, "Didn't I tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" Convinced by Jesus' words, some men approached and with effort, rolled the heavy stone away from the cave's entrance. A reverent silence fell over everyone. The air seemed to carry an indescribable anticipation. Then, Jesus looked up to the sky and prayed, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I say this for the sake of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me." After the prayer, Jesus turned to the inside of the tomb and, with a strong voice that echoed through the hills, called out, "Lazarus, come out." For a few moments, time seemed to stand still. All eyes were fixed on the dark entrance of the cave. Suddenly, a shadow moved inside. Lazarus appeared, still wrapped in the linen strips covering his body and with a cloth over his face. His steps were slow but steady. The sight was so astonishing that many recoiled, while others fell to their knees, moved. Martha and Mary stood paralyzed for a moment, unable to believe what they were seeing. Then, joy exploded in their hearts. They ran toward their brother, tears of happiness streaming down their faces. Jesus, with a serene smile, told those present. "Unbind his feet and hands, and let him go." Friends and family hurried to help Lazarus, removing the bandages that wrapped him. As soon as he was free, Lazarus embraced his sisters, sharing that moment of pure emotion. Life had triumphed over death, and hope was magnificently restored. The news of the miracle quickly spread throughout the region. People came from all over to see Lazarus and hear about what had happened. Many, witnessing this powerful act, began to believe in Jesus, recognizing him as the Son of God. For Martha and Mary, Lazarus' resurrection was not just the return of their beloved brother, but a profound confirmation of their faith. They understood that Jesus' love and power went beyond any human comprehension. The painful waiting and sadness they felt were transformed into a powerful testimony of God's glory. The Bethany community was also impacted. That miracle brought spiritual renewal and unity among the people. Jesus' words became even more valued, and his teachings echoed in the hearts of many. In the days that followed, Martha, Mary, and Lazarus' house returned to being a place of joy and hospitality. Shared meals were filled with gratitude, and conversations were rich with reflections on faith and purpose. Lazarus, with a new perspective on life, dedicated himself to spreading the message of hope he had experienced firsthand. This event marked a turning point in everyone's journey. Lazarus' resurrection was not just an isolated miracle, but a powerful sign of God's love for humanity and the promise of eternal life. Jesus demonstrated that even in the most impossible situations, faith can open doors to the extraordinary. The story of the resurrection miracle continues to inspire people through the centuries. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, we should never lose hope. Martha and Mary's unwavering faith serves as an example of trust in divine power, even when circumstances seem insurmountable. Thus, Lazarus' miracle remains a beacon of hope, illuminating the path for those seeking strength and renewal in their own lives. It is an invitation to believe in the impossible and trust that, with faith, all things are possible. The story of Martha and Mary, two sisters living in the peaceful village of Bethany, continues to echo through the centuries as a powerful teaching on balance in Christian life. Amidst the serene hills and olive groves surrounding their home, they demonstrated daily how concrete actions and spiritual devotion can coexist harmoniously. Martha, with her active spirit and always busy hands, was the pillar of hospitality in her community. For her, serving others was a tangible way to express love and dedication. Her home was always open, and she made sure every visitor was welcomed with a warm meal and a comfortable environment. Martha believed that through service, she could touch people's hearts and make a difference in their lives. Mary, on the other hand, found her strength in moments of quiet and reflection. Sitting under the shade of a fig tree or at Jesus' feet, she sought to nourish her soul with wisdom and spiritual understanding. For Mary, the connection with the divine was what gave meaning to all things. She valued the silence that allowed her to hear her inner voice and comprehend the profound truths guiding her journey. Despite following different paths, the sisters shared a deep love for God and for each other. There were moments when Martha, involved in her many tasks, would pause to watch Mary in contemplation. She wondered how she could integrate more of that inner peace into her own life. Similarly, Mary admired Martha's energy and generosity, reflecting on how she could incorporate more action into her practice of faith. Jesus' visit to their home was a turning point that highlighted the importance of this balance. When Martha complained that Mary wasn't helping with the chores, Jesus gently reminded her that Mary had chosen the better part. It wasn't about devaluing Martha's service, but emphasizing that spiritual life should not be neglected amidst daily occupations. This teaching was an invitation for Martha and all of us to reflect on how to balance the demands of the world with the needs of the soul. After Lazarus' resurrection, the sisters' understanding of this balance deepened even more. They experienced firsthand the transformative power of faith and divine love. Martha, who had always been driven by action, realized the importance of also nurturing her spirit. Mary, who valued contemplation, recognized the need to act in critical moments, supporting her family and community. Together, Martha and Mary illustrate how a full Christian life involves both active service and spiritual devotion. It's not about choosing one over the other, but integrating both into our daily walk. Action without reflection can become empty, while contemplation without practical application can be sterile. True spiritual growth occurs when we balance doing with being, the external with the internal. In practice, this means we can dedicate time to help others, whether through volunteer work, supporting friends and family, or participating in our community. At the same time, we should set aside moments for prayer, meditation, and study, strengthening our connection with the divine and renewing our inner strength. Martha and Mary's story invites us to evaluate our own lives. Are we allowing ourselves moments of silence and introspection? Are we applying spiritual insights in concrete actions that benefit those around us? By seeking this balance, we can experience a richer, more purposeful life aligned with Christian values. Additionally, we recognize that each person has natural inclinations. Some may identify more with Martha, finding satisfaction in serving and being constantly active. Others may see themselves in Mary, valuing contemplation and inner growth. The important thing is to respect our tendencies while also challenging ourselves to incorporate complementary aspects that bring us closer to a balanced life. In the Bethany community, the sisters' example influenced many. People began to understand that serving others and spiritual devotion were not opposite paths, but interdependent parts of a faith journey. Conversations in the squares and homes became deeper, reflecting on how to apply these teachings in daily life. In our modern lives, the message remains relevant. In a fast-paced world, it's easy to get lost in tasks and responsibilities, forgetting to nurture our soul. On the other hand, we might isolate ourselves in search of inner peace without engaging with the needs around us. The challenge lies in harmonizing these dimensions, allowing them to strengthen each other. Martha and Mary's story is a powerful reminder that a full Christian life requires both action and contemplation. By serving with dedication and generosity, following Martha's example, and valuing moments of reflection and spiritual growth, as Mary did, we can walk a balanced path. This balance allows us not only to grow individually but also to positively impact the world around us, living out Christ's teachings in an integral way. The story of Martha and Mary is more than a recount of past events. It is a timeless lesson that deeply resonates in our lives today. Through the experiences of these two sisters, we are invited to reflect on the importance of balancing our external actions with inner growth, finding harmony between serving and contemplating. Martha teaches us the value of dedicated service. Her energy and willingness to meet others' needs are powerful examples of how we can manifest love through concrete actions. She reminds us that the world needs willing hands to work, generous hearts, and people committed to making a difference in others' lives. Mary, in turn, shows us the depth that can be achieved when we set aside time for reflection and to nurture our spirituality. Sitting at Jesus' feet, she demonstrates that the pursuit of wisdom and understanding is essential for a full life. Her devotion inspires us to cultivate our inner world, finding strength and purpose in truths that touch our souls. Together, Martha and Mary exemplify that we do not need to choose between action and contemplation. We can and should integrate both into our journey. By doing so, we not only enrich our own lives but also expand our positive impact on the world around us. This story encourages us to evaluate where we can find more balance in our routines. Perhaps it's dedicating a moment each day for meditation or prayer, even amidst busy schedules. Or maybe it's becoming more actively involved in causes that benefit our community, putting into practice the values we carry in our hearts. Remember that each of us has a unique role to play. Your skills, passions, and inclinations are gifts that can be used to bring light and hope to the world. Do not underestimate the power of a kind action or a word of encouragement. Similarly, do not neglect the importance of taking care of yourself, listening to your inner voice, and connecting with what is sacred to you. By embracing Martha and Mary's example, we can build more balanced and meaningful lives. May we serve with joy, learn with humility, and love with all our being. And inspired by this story, we move forward, knowing that we are contributing to a better world and honoring the greater purpose that guides us. Thank you for watching until here, and don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you can see more content like this and stories of overcoming, motivation, and interesting topics. Until next time.